In this episode, we shift away from learning new technical content and focus on how to perform well on exam day. Because even well-prepared learners can underperform when stress disrupts reading, reasoning, and time management. The goal is calm pacing, best answer logic, and time discipline, which means you keep your mind steady, you recognize what the question is really testing, and you avoid getting trapped in slow spirals. Beginners sometimes think exam tactics are tricks, but good tactics are just good thinking habits under pressure. You will not win by memorizing more at the last minute if you lose points to rushing, misreading, or second-guessing. You will win by using consistent habits that protect your attention and keep your decisions aligned with what the exam is actually measuring. Since the exam spans tasks 1 through 22, your tactics must help you identify which task is being tested and pick the best answer, not just any answer that sounds plausible. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. The first exam day skill is calm pacing, because your brain reads and reasons differently under stress. Calm pacing does not mean going slow. It means going steady enough that you actually process the question and the answer choices. Many incorrect answers happen because the test taker reads a few words, forms an early conclusion, and then looks for a choice that matches the conclusion, even if the conclusion is based on a misread scenario. A simple way to keep calm pacing is to commit to fully reading the question stem before you look at the answer choices, because the choices can distract you into guessing what the question is asking. You also want to notice qualifiers like most appropriate, best next step, and primary concern, because these words signal that multiple answers could be partially correct, but only one fits the question's intent. Beginners often miss qualifiers because they read too quickly, and then they pick a true statement rather than the best action. Calm pacing is the habit of slowing down just enough to catch those qualifiers and to keep your reasoning anchored to the question. The second exam day skill is best answer logic, which is different from true or false logic. On professional certification exams, several answer choices may contain correct facts, but the exam is asking what you should do first, what best addresses risk, or what is most aligned with governance. Best answer logic begins by identifying what category the question falls into, such as governance and accountability, risk lifecycle and testing, architecture and controls, data protection, model behavior and oversight, or monitoring and incident response. Once you know the category, you can filter out choices that belong to a different phase of work, even if they are correct in another context. For example, if the scenario describes an active incident with suspected data exposure, the best next step is likely incident response and containment, not long-term architecture redesign. If the scenario is about adopting a new vendor AI service, the best next step is likely vendor verification and contract enforcement, not post-incident forensics. Beginners should practice this phase awareness because it prevents you from choosing the right concept at the wrong time. Another part of best answer logic is recognizing the exam's tendency to reward governance-first thinking when the situation is still in planning or decision mode. Many scenarios are designed to tempt you into technical solutions before you have defined boundaries, ownership, and acceptable use. If a scenario asks about rolling out a new AI capability with sensitive data, the best answer often involves defining governance requirements, privacy boundaries, and oversight expectations before turning on features. That is not because the exam dislikes technical controls. It is because technical controls must align with approved purpose and risk tolerance to be defensible. Conversely, if the scenario describes a system already running and exhibiting harmful outputs, the best answer often shifts from policy definition to operational response and control tuning. Beginners can improve their best answer accuracy by asking, is this a design decision moment or an active operations moment? The answer to that question often points you to the correct task area. Time discipline is the third exam day skill, and it starts with having a plan for how you will move through the test without getting stuck. Time discipline is not only about speed. It is about preventing a small number of hard questions from consuming the time you need to answer the rest accurately. A practical approach is to set a personal threshold for how long you will spend on a question before you mark it for review and move on. The exact number is less important than having a rule you follow, because rules protect you from emotion. Beginners sometimes fight a hard question as if it is a personal challenge, and that drains time and confidence. When you move on, you preserve momentum and you often return later with a clearer mind. Time discipline also includes watching for long scenario questions where the stem is dense and the answers are subtle. In those questions, calm pacing matters, but you still need to avoid rereading the same paragraph repeatedly without gaining clarity. A very effective best answer tactic is to predict your answer before you look at the choices, at least in broad terms. This does not mean you guess. It means you decide what kind of action the question is asking for, such as governance approval, risk assessment, control selection, validation, monitoring, or incident response. When you then look at the choices, you are evaluating which choice best matches the action you already identified. This prevents the choices from steering your thinking into irrelevant detail. It also reduces the chance you will pick a flashy technical answer when the question is really about accountability or evidence. Beginners often feel relief when they see a familiar term in a choice, but familiarity is not the same as correctness. Predicting the category first helps you stay focused on the question's purpose. When your predicted category does not match any choice, that is a signal you should reread the stem for a missed qualifier or a hidden constraint. Another useful tactic is to use elimination aggressively, because it narrows the decision space and reduces stress. Many answer choices can be eliminated because they are out of sequence, too extreme, or not aligned with the scenario's constraints. Out of sequence means the choice assumes you have already done earlier work, like redesigning architecture when you have not even identified the risk or clarified the use case. Too extreme means the choice proposes a dramatic action that is not justified by the scenario, like shutting down all AI usage for a minor issue. Not aligned means the choice violates privacy or governance boundaries, such as using sensitive data without approval or ignoring vendor contract requirements. Elimination is especially helpful when two answers both look good because they are both true. In that case, the best answer is often the one that is more immediate, more risk-based, more aligned with oversight, or more evidence-driven. Beginners should remember that the exam favors defensible reasoning over cleverness, so elimination should be guided by defensibility. A common exam trap is the almost right answer that includes a correct concept but applies it in a way that violates a boundary, like privacy, least privilege, or governance approval. For example, an answer might suggest collecting more user data to improve model accuracy when the scenario is already sensitive, which would conflict with data minimization. Another might suggest letting developers access production prompts and logs broadly to debug a problem, which might conflict with least privilege and privacy. Another might suggest trusting a vendor's marketing claims instead of requesting evidence and enforcing contract terms. The almost right answer is attractive because it sounds practical, but the exam often wants the option that respects controls, evidence, and accountability. Beginners can guard against this trap by asking, does this answer create a new risk bigger than the one it solves? If yes, it is less likely to be the best answer. Another useful tactic for this specific exam is to keep a quick mental map of the 3 domains as a sorting tool. If the scenario is about setting policies, roles, oversight, privacy, and ethics, domain 1 should lead. If the scenario is about risk lifecycle decisions, threats, testing, and vendor assurance, domain 2 should lead. If the scenario is about architecture, trust boundaries, identity, data pipelines, monitoring, and operational controls, domain 3 should lead. That sorting is not perfect because tasks overlap, but it is good enough to guide best answer logic under time pressure. When you identify the domain, you often identify the likely task family and the kind of action that fits. Beginners who try to recall task numbers directly often slow down, while beginners who use domain sorting often speed up because they reason from first principles. On exam day, speed comes from clarity, and clarity comes from simple mental frameworks. Time discipline also includes controlling your emotional state when you hit uncertainty. When you find a question confusing, it is easy to panic and assume you are unprepared, but confusion is often a sign that the question is testing subtlety, not that you lack knowledge. A calm response is to reread the stem once, focusing only on what is being asked, then reread the choices and look for the one that best matches the asked for action. If it still feels unclear, mark it and move on. Many learners discover that after answering other questions, they return with better recall and improved confidence. This is not magic. It is the way your brain works when stress decreases. Beginners should avoid the habit of changing answers repeatedly without new evidence, because that often reflects anxiety rather than reasoning. A better habit is to change an answer only when you can name the specific clue in the stem that proves the first choice was misaligned. A final exam day tactic is to use your own defensibility test as a tiebreaker. When two answers both seem plausible, ask which one you could defend to a leader or an auditor using evidence and clear reasoning. The defensible answer is usually the one that aligns with governance boundaries, uses risk-based thinking, respects privacy and least privilege, and relies on evidence rather than assumptions. For example, choosing to validate and monitor before scaling, choosing to enforce vendor evidence rather than trust claims, or choosing to contain and investigate an alert rather than ignore it. This exam is designed around professional decision-making, and professional decision-making is about justifiable choices. If you can imagine explaining your choice calmly and clearly, it is often the best answer. Beginners can use this as a practical tool when they feel stuck, because it moves the decision from gut feeling to reasoned justification. Over time, this habit also improves real-world performance, because defensibility is not just an exam skill. To close, exam day tactics for calm pacing, best answer logic, and time discipline are about protecting your thinking under pressure so your knowledge can actually score points. Calm pacing helps you read qualifiers, avoid misreads, and keep your attention steady across the test. Best answer logic helps you identify the primary task being tested and choose the option that fits the scenario's phase, risk, and governance context rather than simply picking a true statement. Time discipline helps you avoid getting stuck, maintain momentum, and return to hard questions with a clearer mind. When you combine these habits, you increase accuracy without needing extra study time, because you stop losing points to stress and confusion. Since the exam spans tasks 1 through 22, these tactics help you repeatedly sort scenarios into the correct domain and task family, then select the most defensible action. That is how you finish strong on exam day, not by rushing, but by staying calm, thinking clearly, and managing time like a professional.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.